Hello YouTube, Bane666 here. So, a very short time ago I made the Propaganda of Toxic Feminism episode 58 live. And I actually had a couple of other videos I wanted to go on with before making episode 59. But you would have noticed at the end of 58 I did a very short update about an article. It's from the Pedestrian and the headline reads, MRAs make 46-minute cut of The Last Jedi that edits out all the women. And of course, this edit was done by an individual, so it's strange that they would use a plural. And of course, there is absolutely no evidence or no reason to think that this person is in any way an MRA. Why am I not surprised? So since recording the update at the end of episode 58, uploading the video and making it live, there have been numerous publications repeating this lie. So I thought I might as well start off episode 59 having a quick look at some of these. Now keep in mind there is absolutely no evidence that the one person who made this edit is in any way affiliated with the men's rights movement. But let's have a look at what some of the media has to say about it. From Junkie, the Dweebs who made an MRA edit of The Last Jedi are being roasted online. Once again, plural. There's more than one of them apparently. And it's now an MRA edit somehow. Even though the person who made it didn't claim in any possible way it was an MRA edit. But, you know, why let the facts get in the way, Junkie? It goes on to say, in another edition of Astounding Wastes of Time that actively make the world a worse place, an MRA advocate. What? An MRA advocate. So that would be a men's rights advocate. That's interesting. It's a beautiful piece of reporting there, Junkie. You don't even seem to know what MRA stands for. But anyway, an MRA advocate has uploaded an entire edit of Star Wars The Last Jedi that removes every woman from the film. And naturally, people are asking a simple yet powerful question. Why? That's strange. I thought people would be asking, why are you calling this person an MRA? Oh, sorry, let me correct myself. An MRA advocate, whatever that is. It goes on to say, Rian Johnson's new installment in the blockbuster franchise has been met with polarized reviews, in the sense that the majority of critics enjoyed it, while a vocal minority of man-babies detested it, mostly because it's full of women. No, if you look at the scores on Rotten Tomatoes, it's not MRAs who are voting it down, it's the general public. And YouTube is filled with reviewers who are angry over numerous parts of the movie which have nothing to do with men's rights or feminism or the fact that it's full of women. There are legitimate criticisms of this movie, some of which I pointed out in my last video. But, you know, continue with the straw man, Junkie. A great example of this is the targeted attack on the film's rating on the review site Rotten Tomatoes, which led to a 40% discrepancy between the critics and audience reviews, and which was later claimed by the alt-right as a manufactured backlash. Yeah, once again I call bullshit on that. And secondly, there's been lots of movies which have a large discrepancy between critics and fans. Usually it's the other way around, though. Usually the critics are shit-canning something and the fans like it, but it just so happens to be the opposite in this case. Now, it goes on to say that an anonymous user uploaded a film called The Last Jedi De-Feminized fan edit to Pirate Bay, which they have described as basically The Last Jedi minus girl power and other silly stuff. Yep. And they're getting this, of course, from the Pedestrian, without checking to see if the Pedestrian is correct in labelling this person an MRA. If this person is anonymous, how do you know he's an MRA? He doesn't mention men's rights anywhere in the description of the movie. It's almost like it's just been made up by dishonest journalists. How strange. Huffington Post also did an article called "Someone Edited The Last Jedi to Make a Chauvinistic Cut Without Women." Now, this article is a lot better. The only time they mention men's rights is here. It says, others on Twitter had a lot to say about the revision. Many suspected men's rights activists or MRAs. Yeah, I wonder why they suspected men's rights activists or MRAs. Maybe because they've been lied to by dishonest journalists. That's just a guess. And then there was an article in Critical Hit Entertainment. Obviously not critical thinking entertainment because they're reporting fake news. But anyway, the headline says, MRAs have made an anti-female fan edit of Star Wars The Last Jedi. Once again, plural. So apparently more than one MRA did this. And of course the article doesn't mention men's rights activists anywhere apart from the title. How strange. And then on intomore.com we have men's rights activists made a 46-minute Star Wars The Last Jedi cut without any women. Once again, men's rights activists, plural, even though it was done by a single anonymous person. Not all heroes wear capes. Men's rights activists, yeah, I know, have not been very happy about Star Wars The Last Jedi. Something about too many women and people of colour actually speaking and making decisions. Apparently one of these activists took a long hard look at their "Be the change you want to see in the world" mug and decided to do something about it. It's interesting. As the pedestrian first pointed out, one MRA decided to make a 46-minute cut of the film sans any women making decisions. The result is The Last Jedi De-Feminized fan edit, uploaded to file sharing site Pirate Bay over the weekend. In a screenshot of the description, the person behind the film, who, shocker, decided to remain anonymous, which makes me ask the question, how do you know he's an MRA? Said they cut all of Laura Dern's plot, as well as the moment when Carrie Fisher's Leia demotes Oscar Isaac's Poe. And once again, there is zero evidence that an MRA did this. It's just repeating the same lies from the pedestrian, which has no evidence. And then we have Inverse Entertainment. Everybody's dunking on this sexist, no women fan edit of The Last Jedi. But its existence just proves why we need powerful women in Star Wars. According to the pedestrian, an anonymous user uploaded a film called The Last Jedi De-Feminized fan edit to Pirate Bay on Sunday, referring to the person as an MRA or men's rights activist. The pedestrian did refer to them as that, for no reason. Just in case the video's intent was unclear, the MRA in question also titled it The Chauvinistic Cut. Now this is interesting. Most responses on Reddit assumed this whole thing might be a joke because it's so exaggerated, as if a MRA parody wrote up a list of asinine perspectives. Gee, I wonder if that might be the case. And on Yahoo Movies, men's rights activist makes male-only 46-minute cut of The Last Jedi gets mocked. Now, the heading here tells us the motivation of all these articles. They're just designed to mock MRAs and to try to make fun of us and to turn us into jokes. They start with an anonymous person who has no affiliation with the men's rights movement. They then falsely associate him with the movement. They then exaggerate the claim so it's now men's rights activists. And then they slander us by saying that we hate women and black people, etc., etc. and we're just all a bunch of racist, sexist trolls that should be laughed at. This is essentially propaganda. Now, this article on Yahoo Movies goes on to say, according to Pedestrian, a men's rights activist has posted an edited version of episode 8 that had been illegally recorded on a camera at a screening that is completely removed of its female characters. Now, all these articles that are just repeating the Pedestrian, not one of the journalists stopped and asked, how do we know it's an MRA who's done this? Not a single one. And then on Screen Geek, men's rights activists, once again plural, men's rights activists released De-Feminized cut of Star Wars The Last Jedi. Men's rights activist took it upon himself. Now, have a listen to the language here. This is fucking hilarious. Men's rights activists, so plural, more than one, men's rights activists took it upon himself, singular, to edit Rian Johnson's entry into the saga, removing many of the scenes which empower its female characters due to its inability to comprehend strong female characters in a world where we have aliens and spaceships as a regular occurrence. Yep. You could put a comma or a full stop somewhere in there as well. But men's rights activists, plural, took it upon himself, singular. How is this person writing articles? I mean, look, my grammar's pretty shitty, but fucking hell. And need I say, there is no evidence provided. So you may remember, I think it was 3 or 4 episodes ago in this series, I did a segment on English journalist Rupert Meyer. And Rupert had been fired from GQ magazine because there were allegations of him sexually assaulting a female journalist. This all came out because of the Me Too campaign. And Rupert then admitted that he had in fact done it and said he was sorry for his actions. Well, this guy has a different way of looking at that story, and yeah, get your tinfoil hats, folks, because this is going to be a very, very interesting ride.
And of course, I have spoken about the tendency of the progressive liberals to police only themselves while allowing all of these reactionary right-wing conservatives to basically run hog wild, raping and molesting whomever they want.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you got it, mate. The left only criticise themselves. They never call their opposition rapists or criticise them or anything like that. Yeah, that sounds like an accurate representation of reality.
While maintaining all of their rapists, molesters, and child abusers as basically employable and heroes within their community, because that's what these people are all about. And basically what you have is a situation in which the left is eviscerating itself while the right considers, just basically continues to empower itself with further promoting its racists and its rapists, or its racist rapists, if you will. Now, a great example of this is, of course, GQ in Britain. Gentleman's Quarterly in Britain was targeted by the men's rights activist movement, headed by a Paul Elam, who's some screwball out of his mind. And, of course, there was a individual who wrote an article in GQ in Britain, who considered himself a male feminist. And this individual was, I believe his name was Rupert Myers. And Rupert Myers basically wrote a column in GQ Britain saying that the men's rights activists were all basically a bunch of knuckle-dragging troglodytes. In other words, he told it like it was. And what happened was the men's rights activists got together and they hired a prostitute to accuse Rupert Myers of raping her.
Oh, so we hired a prostitute to make the allegation against Rupert Myers because we were so offended by his article. Because, you know, that's the only anti-MRA article on the internet, right? Geez, lucky we shut that one down. But let's have a look at this insane conspiracy theory put out by this crackpot. So what actually happened was Rupert Myers went out with a fellow journalist. She made it clear that she wasn't interested in any type of sexual relationship and just wanted to be friends. And Rupert was a bit drunk and a bit gropey. So apparently that interpretation of the story, you know, better known as the facts, isn't 100% accurate. Apparently the female journalist was a prostitute hired by the men's rights movement. And, yeah, so we hired her, and then we got her a job as a journalist. Now, this part is actually quite believable, because modern-day journalists are fucking whores. So, yeah, it is believable that a journalist might be a prostitute. But seriously, this guy's claiming that we hired a prostitute to get a job as a journalist, just so she could then make a claim against Rupert Myers. Now, this version of the story, put out by this crackpot, means that MRAs must also be able to see the future, or possibly we're time travelers from the future. Because this version of the story can only work if MRAs knew a certain number of things beforehand. For example, we had to know that Rupert Myers was going to write the article about us before he did, because he groped the fellow journalist / prostitute before writing an article about MRAs. So we had to know that he was going to write this article beforehand. And we also had to know that the Me Too campaign was going to start sometime in the future, because that's when she came out with the allegation. You know, as opposed to making the allegation immediately after Rupert published the article about us. I guess that would have been the best time to, you know, try to get him fired, as opposed to waiting for a year and a half until the Me Too campaign came out, and then getting her to make the false allegation, right? Yeah, that doesn't seem too complex or convoluted at all, does it? I mean, that seems like a perfectly reasonable explanation. Of course, the other explanation is that Rupert is just an asshole. He got drunk and groped a woman. But, yeah, I'm sure the time-travelling MRAs, hiring a prostitute to pretend to be a journalist, and being able to tell the future theory is much more sound. That sounds more believable to me. Yep. I put that theory right up there with the one that the dinosaurs built the pyramids. I mean, it's pretty evident that they did. Those T-Rex, they picked up those big slabs with their little arms. Perfectly reasonable. And anyone who disagrees with that theory is clearly a right-wing Nazi who's a rapist. Or something like that.
And, of course, none of this was true. Apparently, Rupert Myers, to me, I look at his picture, and I spent enough time in San Francisco in my childhood, growing up surrounded by men who wanted to have sex with me. And I think my gaydar is pretty well developed. And Rupert Myers looks pretty fey to me. I mean, this guy looks gay.
Now, this is hilarious. This is fucking hilarious. MRAs get shit all the time for asking for due process when there's an allegation of rape or sexual assault, right? All we're asking is for legal rights of the accused, due process, a day in court, a fair hearing with legal representation. But we get called misogynistic monsters for asking for that, right? Yet this guy claims that an allegation is false because the person being accused looks gay. Let that sink in for a second. Asking for due process rights of accused men makes you a hater of women and a misogynist. But saying that someone couldn't possibly be guilty because they look gay, perfectly fine, apparently. Apparently, nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Fucking amazing.
He looks like he wants nothing to do with the female body. Just so. But nevertheless, after being accused of sexually assaulting this whore.
No, not whore. Journalist. Oh, sorry. Same thing. Yeah, and yes, I know I've already used that joke, but seriously, is there such a thing as using that joke too often?
He basically has been fired from GQ magazine in Britain, and they've scrubbed his column from the internet. You cannot find it on the internet. I actually was able to piece together only bits and pieces of it by doing some far and wide searching. Not too much time invested in this, but...
Yes, clearly you spent all your time going to critical thinking classes. I can imagine that must have taken up a lot of your time.
Enough, and pretty much found some elements of it that sound pretty reasonable to me. Basically, here's what he had to say. The men's rights movement begins and ends with the argument that there is no pre-existing imbalance between the rights of men and women, or that if there is any injustice, it's an imbalance which prejudices men.
Now, when I did my previous story on Rupert Myers, I found these elements on the internet as well and went through them as well, so I'm not going to reply to them all here, but I'm going to let him ramble a bit and just jump in where it's appropriate. Needless to say, he's full of shit.
This is dressed up with any number of concerns, some of which might seem entirely sensible, but which cumulatively amount to an activism which is hostile to women. Issues like the rights of fathers in family proceedings are used to prop up a nostalgia for a time when men had an easier time of it, a time when men could be assured of jobs, power, and status, a time before feminism. And the aura of victimhood is then talked about. We'll talk about that when we come back, and we'll talk about his firing and how that's so endemic for the progressive left and how it's empowering the rapist right. And then we'll move to various other topics that are important. So we'll get back now to what this individual who looks as queer as a $3 bill Rupert Myers was saying about your average, the philosophy of the men's rights movement. He continues by saying the aura of victimhood adopted by the men's rights activists extends to criticizing the extent of the coverage of female genital mutilation at the expense of discussing male circumcision. MRAs, or men's rights activists, routinely deny the existence of what many feminists call rape culture by suggesting that failures to prosecute sexual violence are the result of endemic false rape allegations, which this guy became a victim of, rather than societal attitudes towards consent.
Now, this is a very, very interesting point, because this guy is clearly claiming that we're bad people for saying false allegations exist, while at the same time defending Rupert Myers by claiming it's a false allegation. Look, there's only two possibilities here. Either Myers is guilty, which he admitted to. He apologized for doing it, for fuck's sake. Or the alternative is it's a false allegation. Either way, it really doesn't look good for the social justice side, does it? Either a anti-MRA journalist who accused us of promoting rape culture is himself guilty of sexual assault, or an anti-MRA journalist who criticized us for talking about false allegations is himself a victim of a false allegation. Not good either way, really, is it?
When the founder of MRA site A Voice for Men, Paul Elam, wrote a piece entitled Bill Cosby's Victims Are Just a Bunch of Drug Whoring Star Effers. This guy actually uses the term frackers, if you will. And he was displaying an overt hostility towards women that characterizes the movement. Over 600 women have accused Bill Cosby of sexual assault, yet Elam goes to bat for Cosby.
No, actually, Elam didn't go to bat for Cosby. He went to bat for due process. But, I guess those 50 women could be time-travelling prostitutes sent back in time by the men's rights movement to discredit Bill Cosby because we don't want black people in Star Wars or something. I can see the headlines now. I think the pedestrian's probably typing that up right at this minute. And by the way, your criticism of Paul for using the F word, I know, it's just fucking outrageous that Paul would say the F word. It's fucking scandalous. What kind of fucking person is he for saying the F word? You wouldn't catch me fucking saying it, that's for sure.
When Reggie Yates investigated these men who think feminism has gone, quote unquote, too far for a BBC documentary, he found advocates for decriminalizing rape on private land.
Yeah, what he found was a single pickup artist who had written an article to make a point. Now, I think that article was a very, very bad choice, particularly for MRAs, because it's constantly used against us, even though it was written by a pickup artist, not an MRA. But yeah, it's strange how a single pickup artist now becomes MRA activists, plural. Interesting reinterpretation of reality there, isn't it?
Homophobes and racist defenders of men's rights, and a tsunami of death and rape threats aimed at prominent feminists.
Yeah, none of which were made by actual MRAs, but, continue.
Well, see, this is what's going on due to Russian sponsorship, because Vladimir Putin, thanks to his advisor, the Aleister Crowley of Russia, Putin's Rasputin, known as Vladimir Putin's brain and introduced as such by Alex Jones, the great human white trash piece of shit, subhuman white trash piece of shit.
Okay, finally he got something right. Continue.
Who pushes Alexander Dugin. Alexander Dugin has convinced Vladimir Putin to make rape legal on private land. So husbands can rape their wives or abuse them. As a matter of fact, women can no longer bring charges against their husbands in Russia for assault and battery or domestic or spousal abuse. Women are now property in Russia. That's what white men or white trash crackers want here in the United States.
Oh, yes, of course. That's exactly what we mean when we say, let's talk about the high male suicide rate. We're actually saying, can we rape our wives? Even though we're constantly told by feminists that we live in our mother's basements and have never had girlfriends. Yeah, at the same time we want it legal to rape our wives, which apparently we don't have, according to them. It all makes perfect sense. What's even stranger is the person he's referring to, once again, is Rushfi, who is not only an anti-MRA, but is also not white. He's, from memory, he's of Iranian heritage. So, your example of white trash MRA is an Iranian pickup artist. Yeah, those critical thinking classes are really paying off, aren't they? You're really getting your money's worth out of them.
They want to go back to being white cavemen.
I find that statement to be extremely problematic because it excludes cavemen of color.
So what happens when this guy did this? When this man wrote this column, which has been totally scrubbed from online, been totally censored by GQ, it was because he was framed by the men's rights movement, the men's rights activists, who he exposed as cave-dwelling idiots, and they attacked him with a false rape allegation by some whore they employed. And of course, what happened was he was brought down. He was totally destroyed.
So the person who made the claim against Rupert Myers, who this guy is claiming to be a prostitute hired by MRAs, is journalist Kate Lever. So I thought it would be interesting to have a little look at Kate Lever to see how deep undercover she is as a journalist. I want to see how dedicated she is to her fake role as a journalist. I mean, some nut job on the internet has told us that she's actually a prostitute, so I guess that must be true. So let's have a look. Here's a post on Kate's Facebook from the 7th of December where she talks about being on BBC 5 Live to talk about Time magazine and the Me Too campaign. So this is really one dedicated prostitute, really playing the role of journalist here, apparently. Because she did travel back in time, remember, to the present to do this. And now she's really taken to the role of journalist as if she was actually a journalist. But obviously that's not true. And here's another article by Kate, which is a fairly recent one. It's Feminist Reading Really Can Help Beat Anorexia. It Worked for Me by Kate Lever. So this is obviously the time-travelling prostitute Kate Lever, not only pretending to be a journalist by writing an article and getting it published, but also pretending to be a feminist. It's all just make-believe, apparently. None of it's true. Here's another article by Kate. This one's called How Women Are Using Apps to Fight Loneliness in the Big City. Oh, and here's an interesting one by Kate. This is from the 5th of November. Love and Drugs on the Street. The BBC doc that follows girls sleeping rough. Now, there's one line from this that I really want to point out to you. It says, these days, 1 in 8 rough sleepers is a woman. Wow. I mean, that's pretty shocking. It's only 7 men out of every 8 people sleeping rough. That's terrible. I mean, where is the equality in that? Surely it should be 8 men out of every 8 people sleeping rough. That would be equality, right? Right? Isn't that how we do equality with feminism? Yeah, so apparently this prostitute who's masquerading as a journalist who's travelled back in time, who was hired by MRAs, is more concerned about the one woman out of 8 rough sleepers than the 7 men who are out of every 8 rough sleepers. Because, you know, she's not a feminist journalist at all. That would be crazy to suggest that. And here's another article by Kate. The return of joy when feeling comes back after a depressive episode. And I could go on showing you article after article from Kate. She has really taken to the role, literally written hundreds of articles, which are clearly fake, because she's just a pretend journalist, apparently, really a prostitute hired by MRAs. And I also sent Kate a tweet pointing out that this nutjob is suggesting that she's a prostitute and not a journalist. I don't know if I'll get a response, but I imagine if I do, it will be quite interesting. Next.
And this is the left, the progressive Gentleman's Quarterly in Britain. So this is what they're doing to people who are progressive. But if you're a rapist like Blake Farenthold...
Okay, just let me state that I have no idea who this senator is, and I don't know if he's guilty or what he's done. And to be honest, I don't really care because it's not relevant to the topic here. Douglas Dietrich, who's the guy making these insane claims, is making the point that there is a bias, that the left are attacking themselves and giving a free pass to the right. And the example he uses is Rupert Myers being fired by GQ because of an allegation. Now, to my knowledge, the senator he brings up, the right-wing senator he brings up, has never worked for GQ. And because he's never worked for GQ, they're incapable of firing him. So you can't make the case that GQ is only penalising the left if your example of the right wing is someone who's never worked for them. It doesn't make any sense. It's really not a good argument to make. And whoever uploaded this clip to YouTube of Douglas Dietrich, they've actually put up on the screen an article which is criticising the Republican senator. So clearly he is getting criticism from somewhere. He's not actually getting a free pass, is he? And of course none of this has anything to do with men's rights whatsoever. But I'm going to let Douglas Dietrich ramble on for a little while, because I'm pretty sure some of you at this point think he's probably just a troll. He's a Poe. And I admit that is a possibility, but if he is a Poe, he is an extremely dedicated Poe. He is living as a Poe, basically. And I want to illustrate that point by just letting him ramble for a while about this senator, just so you can get the feel that, you know, this guy is pretty much full on. He's living this shit. And then I want to have a closer look at exactly who Douglas Dietrich is.
Republican in Texas, who was responsible for an enormous sex scandal, which resulted in his terrorizing a woman into silence. This is an individual who is totally different from former Michigan Representative John Conyers, a Democrat, who allegedly used $27,000 in taxpayer funds to settle a wrongful dismissal charge by a former employee in 2015. He resigned just last month amid multiple accusations of sexual misconduct. And this is what the Democrats do, including, of course, what's happened to other Democrats recently of great fame. We don't even need to go into them. It's been enough of them recently that it's hard to keep track of them.
So let's have a quick look at Douglas Dwayne Dietrich on his website, dddietrich.com. And here's a picture of Douglas. And it says here you will find powerful information from the most dangerous man either side of the Pacific. And he describes himself as a renegade human weapon of mass instruction. For more recent information, you can find Douglas Dwayne Dietrich on Facebook, where he posts cutting-edge and up-to-the-minute information on worldwide military issues, political situations, and will field questions posted to his pages. So let's have a little look at his introduction. Very professional-looking webpage too, I have to say. So he claims to have worked for the Department of Defense Research for a decade, and he handled extremely classified information on such topics as Pearl Harbor, Roswell, Vietnam, and he also handled documents exposing the reality behind vampires, zombies, and Soviet psychic warfare. Oh, look, he's into Tesla, H.P. Lovecraft, L. Ron Hubbard. There's a bit of everything here, you know, Nazism, Zionism, Satanism, child abuse, controversial medical experimentation. Oh, there was even an assassination attempt on Bill Clinton. Now, you're probably saying, yep, this guy's a Poe, but yeah, he does a radio broadcast. So, like I said, if he is a Poe, he's a very dedicated one. So, I'm guessing he's just a nut job. He's like a stew made up of conspiracy theories, social justice, and New Age bullshit. Anyway, I think that's enough attention for Douglas Dwayne Dietrich. If you want to watch the rest of his video, you can find the link below.
Well, I'm going to argue with that because Pizzagator Steve Bannon, on behalf of his Russian backhackers, said there's a special place in hell for Republicans who don't support Trump and Roy Moore. Now, aside from Roy Moore's known pederasty, because he was barred from Gadsden Mall in his hometown, and that means there had to be solid evidence on video footage for security guards to be able to convince the management of that mall to ban a state prosecutor and later on an acting judge from a mall. This guy had to be caught on film squeezing young girls in various places, groping where he wasn't supposed to go. Now, aside from Roy Moore's racism, his homophobia, his religious fanaticism.
I just remembered there was one other thing I quickly wanted to point out. The person who uploaded the clip of Douglas Dietrich was using anti-MRA memes in the background, and I wanted to have a very close look at one of them very quickly. Now, this particular meme says, a male rights activist's girlfriend is, and it's got a picture of an angel, how my parents see her, a picture of a crazy woman, how my friends see her, a picture of a very fat woman, how she sees herself. Then it's got a picture of a woman with weird plastic surgery, how society sees her. Don't really get that one. Then it's got a picture of an attractive, thin woman, how I see her. And then it's got a picture of a hand, what she actually looks like. Of course, it's the same, standard shit that MRAs aren't really men because they don't get laid enough, which really sounds strange coming from a feminist, right? But anyway, let's examine this. So what this meme is saying is that my parents, when they look at my hand, they see an angel. And when my friends look at my hand, they see a crazy woman. And my hand, for some reason, thinks that it's way too fat. Well, that makes perfect sense. See, this is what happens when SJWs try to do comedy. It just doesn't work. They really just don't get the concept. Oh well. Speaking of SJWs attempting humour...
Hey you, guy living in their mom's basement.
Starts out with living in mother's basement joke. So very, very original. Next.
Are you tired of always being rejected by women?
Then makes angry because you're rejected by women joke. You notice how when feminists and social justice warriors argue against us, a lot of the time they sound like they're pickup artists. They try to pull us down by basically saying that we're angry because we can't get laid. That's the same arguments used by Rush V and the pickup artists. That's interesting, isn't it? Next.
Or worse, having to deal with women with their own opinions?
Dealing with women with their own opinions. You mean like Karen Strawn and Erin Pitsey and Cassie J and the numerous other female MRAs who are both loved and respected within the movement. Do you mean like that? Is that what you're talking about? Because we don't have an issue with that.
And views on things? What? Do you like to escape into a world of video games, comic books, and science fiction movies?
Well, yes. Most people who play video games or watch movies do it for escapism. Even if it's just an hour and a half, they can switch off the outside world and get lost in a piece of fiction. Do you not understand the purpose of movies and video games?
Because it was a world that used to be only predominantly featuring white men in power and as the lead characters.
Only white men in power and as the lead characters. Okay. So he's talking about Star Wars The Last Jedi. So I have to ask the question, Did you see the original trilogy? Did you see the prequels? Because there were women in power in those movies. In the very first one, A New Hope, we have Princess Leia, who, at the age of 19, is a senator. Are you saying that's not a position of power? She's a princess of a planet, and she's a general in the rebellion at the age of 19, but she's not in a position of power, apparently. How strange. And then in Return of the Jedi, we find out that the leader of the rebellion is a woman called Mon Mothma, who doesn't only lead the rebellion, but she's a former senator. So I guess that would be another woman in a position of power. And then in the prequels, we had a teenage queen of a planet. Now, why that planet elected teenagers to ruling positions is beyond me. But they did. They elected a teenage girl to rule the planet. And then in the next couple of movies, she went on to become a senator, which is yet another position of power, and was replaced by yet another female to rule the planet. So, are you saying that being a queen, a princess, the leader of the rebellion, a general in the rebellion, or a senator are not positions of power? Really? Strange argument. As for people of colour, I will admit that the very first Star Wars, A New Hope, didn't have any black characters. Although, who knows, maybe there were some stormtroopers that we didn't get to see. But I think this was mainly because it was shot in England in the 70s. And I guess actors in the 70s in England were predominantly white. But they fixed this in The Empire Strikes Back, where we had Lando, who was the owner and head of a whole floating city. If you didn't notice, he was a black man. And then in the prequels, we had Mace Windu, who was on the Jedi Council, which is also a position of power. And of course there were other female Jedis and Jedis of colour. Is that a thing? Is that a term? Jedis of colour? It's a thing now. JOC, Jedis of colour.
We now to live in a world where those same things feature women. Wordies. Alright? Did you go see the latest Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi? With fond memory of the original trilogy, where it was a bunch of white guys saving a woman who really didn't do much in the films except...
So, A New Hope was a bunch of white guys saving a woman who really didn't do much. Really. So this 19-year-old who's a senator, a general in the rebellion, and a princess of an entire planet, who was smuggling the plans for the Death Star, who was captured and talked back to Darth Vader and Tarkin.
Darth Vader, only you could be so bold. The Imperial Senate will not sit still for this. When they hear you've attacked a diplomatic...
Don't act so surprised, Your Highness. You weren't on any mercy mission this time. Several transmissions were beamed to the ship by rebel spies. I want to know what happened to the plans they sent you.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a member of the Imperial Senate on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan.
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take it away!
Governor Tarkin, I should have expected to find you holding Vader's leash. I recognized your foul stench when I was brought on board.
Charming to the last. You don't know how hard I found it signing the order to terminate your life.
I'm surprised you had the courage to take the responsibility yourself.
Princess Leia, before your execution, I would like you to be my guest at a ceremony that will make this battle station operational. No star system will dare oppose the Emperor now.
The more you tighten your grip, Tarkin, the more star systems will slip through your fingers.
Who was tortured, yet didn't tell where the hidden rebel base was. And when rescued from her cell by Luke and Han and Chewie, she grabbed the gun off Luke and started shooting stormtroopers.
I can't hold off forever. Now what?
Some rescue! You came in here, did you have a plan for getting out?
He's the brain, sweetheart. What the hell are you doing?
Somebody has to save our skins. Into the garbage, flyboy!
but she didn't really do much. You're starting to sound like a bit of a misogynist, mate. Or maybe you just haven't watched any other Star Wars movie. Is that it? Have you seen the prequels? Have you seen the original trilogy? Because it doesn't sound like it.
Maybe every once in a while fire off a light pistol or something.
Did he say a light pistol? I mean, it's a bit hard to understand him because his mic setup is really bad, but it sounded like he said a light pistol as opposed to a blaster or a lightsaber. But anyway, let's continue.
But to see this new movie with women in power.
This new movie with women in power as opposed to the old movies with princesses and queens and senators and generals and leaders of the rebellion. Is that what you mean? Well, I'm glad the new ones finally have some women in positions of power, unlike those old ones.
Real white male leads. Did you confront to see a movie? Not expecting to see a movie where women were not only like the lead characters who dared to go off and train to be something as cool as a Jedi, but also
yeah, there were female Jedis in the prequels. Did you miss them? Have you watched the movies?
Also heads of the military who, how dare I say it, oppose the male lead character's views on things. Don't worry. Your frail sense of masculinity is safe here. And now you can finally enjoy the new Star Wars movie without girls in it.
And what would be the fun in that? I mean, I grew up watching the original trilogy, and I have a great respect for Leia as a character. In fact, I've been defending her this entire segment. Unlike you, who diminish her every fucking chance you get. So you can build up The Last Jedi as somehow being the first movie in the Star Wars saga which has women in power or some shit. It's kind of bizarre.
With this new version of Star Wars, which has been edited to get rid of all the scenes of women in power. So no more having the male lead character being confronted by women who disagree with him because they outrank him. Or I just want to be a Jedi. What's up with that? Anyway.
Yes, what is up with that? That is a very good question. I have to ask, what the fuck is up with this entire thing?
So now, with this new version, you can see things like not being in power. Or, and because you're also kind of racist, the Asian character, female character, just smiles, docile, as she looks at her male co-star.
Hold on, I thought all the female characters were edited out, and now you're saying that the female Asian characters left in?
Right? And if you act now, we can give you a special edition of the Black Panther without black people in it.
I fucking told you. I predicted this last episode. I said there would be shit about Black Panther 2, and here we are. Now, to be fair, I did say there would be articles, and this obviously isn't an article, it's just some guy on YouTube. But I guarantee you there will be articles as well claiming that MRAs are offended because Black Panther has a black cast, or some fucking bullshit like that. So I guess I know what I'm going to be responding to next month, right? Yeah, can't wait. Okay, I have to give you a bit of a warning before you watch this next one. If you have a dog in your house, you may want to take the dog outside just to keep your dog safe. Just a warning. You've been warned. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna call no names out. And y'all know me here on these internets. But it is important that men, when they hear other men, no matter if they're straight, trans, gay, bi, etc., etc., if you hear another man, that's a good angle right here. That's a good one. If you hear another man spew some fucking men's rights rhetoric.
You mean about the high male suicide rates, or parental rights, or the sentencing gap? You mean things like that? Is that what you're talking about?
You are obliged. You are obliged to shut it down. Like it's your duty.
Wednesday, that means of course it's time for Wangafat Wednesday. An acronym stands for what or who am I not giving a fuck about today? And today, I'm not giving a fuck about the sad little dweebs who like to call themselves MRAs, men's rights activists. Well, I'm not giving a fuck about MRAs generally, but specifically the sad little fuckers who are behind and or applaud a recut version of Star Wars The Last Jedi that cuts out all the women. This apparently makes for a 47-minute long movie, and it's just ridiculous because they're striking back and saying like, hey, we're sick of this feminism and social justice that's being introduced. It's like, being introduced? Star Wars was from the start, from the first movie, about fighting against oppression, you know, and it had the princess who didn't need to be rescued.
With fond memory of the original trilogy, where it was a bunch of white guys saving a woman who really didn't do much in the film.
Who was the strong, independent female. And it's just like, it's not just been introduced, it's always been the core of Star Wars, to have diversity in the cast, in the characters.
Yes, exactly. That's the point I made earlier in this video. So, if Angry Aussie had any kind of critical thinking skills, what exactly should this tell him? Well, considering he doesn't have any critical thinking skills, like absolutely none whatsoever, let me give him a little bit of a hand. So the one good article I saw on this whole debacle was from Ian Miles Chong. It's titled 47-minute womanless cut of The Last Jedi sends media into Triggerland. And the one bit that people like Angry Aussie really should take notice of is this one little paragraph. It says, despite having every indication of being a work of satire, the cut has sparked a backlash from the progressive media who are lamenting what they see as an insurgence of men's rights activists in the geek community. Fuck it, we're going to take over the Greek community too. Not only do we not want women in Star Wars, we want your fucking souvlaki's as well. But seriously, how can you not see this as satire? How can you not see this as a Poe? And the fact that Angry Aussie and so many people in the media have just exploded, running around like this is the most important story of the week. It's fucking amazing, really, when you think about it. And the really disappointing thing is, although it's not surprising, but the really disappointing thing is they don't care if it's satire. They don't care if it's true or not, because it gives them the opportunity to sling mud. That's the only fucking thing they're interested in. They're not interested in being accurate. They're not interested in being truthful. All they're interested in is trying to pull down their opposition. That's it. Well, that is except Angry Aussie, because he is literally too stupid to understand that it might be satire. Like, literally too fucking stupid to understand that someone might be taking the piss out of him.
And to have the central theme being, the overpowering fascist regime is bad. It's taken a few forms in the different movies, but that's the central thing. So strong female characters are not new.
That's true, and you will find that MRAs do not have a problem with strong female characters, as long as they're not preaching feminism or they're a Mary Sue. And that was one of the complaints about Rey in The Force Awakens. She could suddenly do all these things with the Force without any effort. There wasn't any character development or any journey. She was just given the Force, given the power. Now, you could argue a similar case for Luke and Anakin, but not to the same degree as Rey in The Force Awakens. But that doesn't mean we don't like female characters or strong female characters. Need I point out Ripley in Alien? That was in the 70s. I fucking love that movie. I suspect that most MRAs also love Alien and Aliens. Alien 3 and Alien Resurrected. Yeah, we may be a bit divided over those ones, but I guarantee you that most of us love Alien and Aliens. That has a strong female character at its core. She's a well-written character. The character is well acted. And they're great movies.
The diversity in the casting of The Last Jedi was really noticeable. And I'll just throw out there, the one bit that doesn't get as much notice as I think should, because I really liked it and thought it was really noticeable, having older fighter pilots, both male and female. They're not all just strapping young bucks. I mean, look, I'm as much a Poe Dameron fan as anyone. Just waiting for him and Finn to finally get it over with and kiss. But, actually showing age diversity is in a lot of cases more uncommon than showing gender or race diversity. I thought that was good. But getting back to these sad little fuckwits who've made this no female cut of the movie, which, it must be really thrilling, coherent viewing. Much like their worldview, really. Just about as coherent. And it's like, did it upset people? Dude, no one's upset. I see these sad folks go, we've done a no women cut and the whole internet is triggered. All the social justice warriors are triggered. And I get that you are very, very stupid and you use words that you don't know the meaning of.
Hold on. Let me fix this.
Very, very stupid. Very, very stupid.
That's better.
But laughing at you because you're a sad fucking loser is not being triggered. Pointing out you're a worthless little fuck who's wasting their lives, not being triggered. And it's just like the stupidity and the audacity of someone goes, I'm so upset that the concept of male dominance is being questioned. I'm going to waste huge chunks of my life doing a pointless, worthless cut-up of a movie, and I'm cutting all the women out because I don't like the women. I'm cutting them out. And for those people to say people laughing at them are triggered, are snowflakes, it's absolutely absurd. I mean, we need to laugh at these people. This is one of the key reasons I shit on MRAs, basically. It's like, but you're a man. Shouldn't men's problems be looked after? Yes, I'm a man. And there are issues for men that need addressing. It's not like life is perfect for straight white men.
Did you hear that? It's not like life is perfect for straight white men. Yeah, I hate to tell you this, angry Aussie, but MRAs don't advocate exclusively for straight white men. We advocate for all men. Yes, that includes white men, and it includes straight men, but it also includes gay men, black men, Asian men, trans men, and even male feminist assholes like you. Just to be clear, mate.
Never said that. I'm just saying MRAs are fuckwit. Anyone who has identified as an MRA is at best a shallow, non-thinking, easily led fool.
Hold on, let me fix this.
A shallow, non-thinking, easily led fool.
Ah, that's better.
Far more likely, they're a nasty, malicious fuckwit who's leading on these easily led fools. Because if you want to identify as that, I automatically mark you as a fucking loser. Because the core of the whole MRA thing, when they talk about fighting for men's rights, it's like insecurity. Everything about MRAs is about insecurity.
Everything about MRAs is insecurity. So when we want to talk about the high male suicide rate, that's because we're insecure, right? When we want fathers to actually spend time with their kids and see their kids, that's because we're insecure, apparently. When we want to stop newborn baby boys having their genitals mutilated, apparently that's because we're insecure. When we want equal sentencing for equal crimes regardless of gender, apparently that's because we're insecure. Apparently we should just shut up and put up with these things. Because apparently only insecure people talk about these things. And the ironic thing is, it's pretty hard to be insecure and be an MRA with the barrage of bullshit we constantly get from morons like this. Not to mention those in the media, constantly calling us pro-rape and pro-pedophile and claiming that we want women to be chained to the kitchen sink and we hate women, and just a constant stream of insults and bullshit. I don't know how you can be insecure and be an activist when you're dealing with that. You really wouldn't last very long if you were insecure. But the ironic thing is, he just said a couple of minutes ago that men do have issues. And now he's saying that those who want to talk about those issues are insecure. Oh, but only the ones who use the MRA label. So why does Angry Aussie think this? Well, that's because his small little mind is trapped in a feminist echo chamber where he reads all this bullshit. He doesn't think about it, no critical thinking whatsoever. He swallows the bullshit whole and believes every single word without question. Oh, but we're the morons, right, Angry Aussie? You're being force-fed bullshit and you're asking for more, but we're the morons. Yeah. Think again, mate.
Say, oh, why don't you like MRAs? Why are you pro-feminism? Because I'm not insecure and scared. You sad, pathetic little boys. You worthless little fuckwits who haven't developed emotionally past the age of 5. You're sad and worthless and need to grow the fuck up. The concept of, I'm going to recut Star Wars and cut out all the women. That'll trigger all those SJWs. No! Nobody is triggered!
So imagine a reporter from a right-wing publication like Breitbart. I'm just using Breitbart as an example. But imagine a reporter from Breitbart went onto Tumblr and just randomly found an offensive post. Like this one, for example. This user is called Hitler Was Right. And apparently he or she likes to post about the Zionist state and the Israel plan to wipe out whites. You get the idea, right? Now, this journalist from Breitbart took this post and wrote an article claiming that this was written by a feminist. Now, there's no evidence that a feminist wrote this, but that doesn't matter. The journalist just assumed that the author of this particular thing on Tumblr was a feminist, for whatever reason. And this particular journalist portrayed this as a typical thing that feminists believe in. The next day, numerous right-wing publications repeated the lie. They just copied the article almost word for word without actually doing any research for themselves. They said that feminists believe that Hitler was right, and clearly all feminists everywhere hate Jews and think that the Zionist state of Israel plans to wipe out whites. This is a typical feminist belief, according to all these articles. None of them actually went to see if the post was legitimate, or whether it was fake, or whether it was written by a feminist, or possibly an anti-feminist, or possibly someone who doesn't give two shits about feminism. What would these people on the left think of that? What would they have to say about the right-wing publications? They would be calling it fake news. They would be saying this is shit journalism. They would be saying that it's propaganda, that these people are full of lies, that they're misrepresenting feminism, that they're not actually interested in the truth. All they're interested in is spreading lies and propaganda. They would say that these people deserve to lose their jobs as journalists. And you know what? They would be right about all of that. But here's the thing. All those things apply equally to the left when they write bullshit articles about MRAs based on absolutely fucking nothing.
We are laughing at you! And also, you're just gonna head off and all, oh, you say you're not giving a fuck, but you made a video. You must give a fuck. No, I don't give a fuck about you and your stupid movie cut. I did this as entertainment to laugh at you and to encourage other people to laugh at you. Again, I get that you, if you identify as an MRA, and particularly if you think this Last Jedi cut is a good idea, I get you are a very, very stupid person.
Hold on, let me fix this.
A very, very stupid person.
Ah, that's better.
And anything slightly approaching an abstract concept will be almost impossible for you to wrap your tiny little pea brain around. But when I say I'm not giving a fuck about someone and make a movie about that, a video about that, I make the video to make fun of that person. That doesn't mean I give a fuck about them. That doesn't mean I think they're important. That means you're stupid, sad, pathetic, and a joke. I'm laughing at you, and I want other people to laugh at you, and I like to provide a little bit of entertainment for people, while encouraging them to laugh at you. But I get you're probably far too stupid to understand that, and that is another in the whole plethora of reasons I don't give a fuck about you.